Hello Sterling, Colorado, and all you YouTubers out there. This is Michelle Mead with the Nostalgic Ceramics Studio, and I want to pop in today. We're going to be making little toad houses or little fairy garden houses, or they can be incense burners, they can be little tea light burners. You can make them into whatever you want. We're making ours into toad houses because that's what all of the little kids around here want to make. Also, I wanted to put this workshop together for you today because we didn't get to making all of those little detailed pieces on our big giant planter in the last video. Sorry, I have the garage door open and you know the street back there is a little bit loud, so if you hear any background noise, that's what it is. But we're going to be getting into a little bit more of those little detail builds that made that previous pot so whimsical, and is going to make these pots so cute. And we're going to be doing it on a much smaller scale, so I hope I can get to all of those little details and share with you how I'm building those. Also, I want to talk a little bit about how I painted that other pot, because I know I said in the last video I would do that. And so I want to make sure that I get that in with this video too. So without further ado, I'm going to turn you around and we're going to get started. Okay, so let's start off by going over some of the materials and tools we're going to be using today. Obviously we have a slab of clay here. This is a mid-range stoneware that is a chocolate in color. It doesn't have, if it has grog or sand in it, it's very fine to the point where I can't even feel it. So it's a very nice clay body to work with. Here we have my little fondant stamps. I got these letter stamps. I got these on Amazon. They were very inexpensive. And I, wrote out the word toad because I'm making a toad house, and I thought it would be kind of cute to put a little, like address plate on, only it's gonna say toad. So I thought that would be cute. I have my slip and my score tool. I have a round cookie cutter for the base, and I think that that's a good size for our little toad house. They're not going to be very big. And so I've got that. I have these bisque stamps that I made, and I made this one into a leaf. I just took my needle tool and just kind of put these little markings in the clay in the shape of a leaf. So you're going to need a needle tool. And then I'm going to use this little heart cookie cutter to cut out my leaves. So I'm going to stamp the clay and then cut my leaves with this little undulated edge cookie cutter in the shape of a heart. If you don't have a kiln at home and you're using a studio kiln to fire, you can make these little stamps out of air dry clay. I have a little flower cookie cutter. I haven't decided if I'm going to use it or not, but I have it here just in case. Today I'm going to be working on a much lighter, smaller wear board. This is a bat from the bat system, the Dirty Girls bat system, so that's what I'm going to be working on today. I have my yellow rib to compress and remove the texture from my slab. I have this ball tool, which I like to use sometimes when I'm sculpting. I have these other stylus type rubber tools that I also like to use while I'm sculpting. A fettling knife. 2 different paintbrushes, different sizes for cleanup, slip, and whatnot. I do have a banding wheel to make it easier on myself as I'm building. However, you absolutely do not need a banding wheel to do this. A cheap way to kind of get yourself a banding wheel is, I know I've seen like at Walmart and other big box stores in the cake baking section, they have like a fairly inexpensive Wilton cake turntable. I don't know how well that would work for clay, but I saw them and I wondered. I was like, gosh, that would be a pretty fairly inexpensive way to get a banding wheel You know, if you're not making big giant things. This banding wheel is very heavy. It's a Shimpo, I believe. It has got to be at least 15, maybe 20 pounds. I know you can't really see that on camera, but it, you know, it runs real smooth, almost like a pottery wheel. And it also will hold, I believe, up to 25 pounds of clay. Obviously, as a beginner, you would not need that. So I think that Wilton one might work if you're just looking for an inexpensive solution for small amounts of clay. Okay, enough on that. I'm gonna move this stuff out of the way and we'll come back and talk a little bit about the pot and how I glazed it and all of the details that we're gonna kind of be replicating a little bit in the build today. Okay, so I wanted to jump in here and just show you the finished pot from the previous workshop video and tell you a little bit about what glazes I used on this. So that you can kind of replicate this yourself if you want to do that. So, first of all, what I went ahead and did is I used that texture roller that had the birds and these trees on it, and I did a wipe back. And so how I did that was I used an underglaze. I used Amico Velvet underglaze in jet black. I watered it down, probably 50% glaze, underglaze, 50% water. I brushed that all over the pot, and all over, I mean including in all of these little detailed areas. I brushed it everywhere. The entire pot got this except for the interior. And then I took a damp sponge and I just wiped it off. Now, when you get a wipe back like that, you can leave as much or take as much away as you want. Like I could have gotten this even lighter if I wanted to, or it could have been quite a bit darker if I wanted it to be. So what this texture ends up looking like is how much you wipe off. I think I ended up changing my water bucket 2 or 3 times because your water bucket does get kind of mucky, and you'll end up reapplying the underglaze instead of wiping it off. So you have to clean your water out to get it, you know, this light. But there's that. Then I went in with all of the red pieces here, the finches, I think they are, the red birds, and the mushrooms with Mako Stroke and Coat Hot Tamale. Now this is, I believe, considered an underglaze. However, it is a glaze. So you do not have to clear coat this in order for it to come out shiny. These initially were made for low range firing, which is basically earthenware. However, many of them do fire to cone 6 very well, and some of them even fire to cone 10 very well. And they are food safe, dinnerware safe. And so this is a great option. The Mako Stroke and Coats are a great option to get a good color on little detail pieces. And I have to say that Mako's Stroke and Coat Hot Tamale is the most true red glaze I have ever used. There might be others out there, but I haven't found it yet. So this is a really great true red if you need a true red. It fires just fine at cone 6. This was fired at a hot cone 5, which means that the 5 cone was bent all the way down, and the cone 6 cone was starting to bend. So you can see that that red did just fine. It's beautiful. So then I did the same wipe back on the door, right? And then I did the white back on the rocks with the black underglaze on the stones here. And then I used Amico Smoke Celadon on the stones. I used a white back of Hot Tamale on the roses. I used Amico's Rainforest C49 on this leaf here. And then I used Mako Stroke and Coat Sunkissed on the little pot and inside the window here. Then I went ahead and I put a clear coat over everything. I used Speedball High Fire Clear, transparent clear. Let me see. This says Fires to Cone 5 or 6. And it's just Speedball's clear. It does have a funny texture in the bottle, and it does go on pink. However, it fires real nice. So I clear coated everything. I clear coated over the Stroke and Coat. I clear coated over the birds and the underglaze wipe back. I clear coated inside the pot to about here. And then I left the rest, just the raw clay, just because it's the interior of a pot. Why does it need to be clear coated? So I hope that answers any questions about how I glazed this. I do love the Mako Stroke and Coats. Speedball Clear is my favorite clear so far that I have found. I do like Amico's Mixing Clear. However, sometimes these bigger pots with a lot of detail are really hard to dip, and you can get that Amico Mixing Clear too thick in places, and then it kind of bubbles. So I prefer on huge pieces like this to use the brush on clear, because then I can get it on more evenly. And this Speedball Clear has never given me any issues. It doesn't muddle up any underglaze paintings as much as other clears do, so I really like this one. So there's that. Now this is the toad house my daughter Lily made, and she is 11 years old. Clearly she comes into the studio and helps quite a bit. She's hand built quite a few things. She doesn't have a lot of patience for the pottery yet. So I think that once she begins to have a little bit more patience with it, her pieces are gonna be really amazing. But she built this all by herself. She had no help from me. I didn't tell her what to do. I didn't tell her how to build it. And she put this little toad house together. This part was a slab build, and this part here was a pinch pot. No, it wasn't. It was a form. It was also a slab build. She used a little form, I can see. But this part here could be a pinch pot, which is how I'm gonna make mine today. She put a little chimney on, and then she put all these little leaves on. Now, I'm not real sure what she used to glaze, but I think she also used all of the Mako Stroke and Coats to glaze this. And the kids like and prefer these Mako Stroke and Coats, I think, a lot, because the color that's inside the bottle is the same color generally that they're gonna get on the outside. So it gives them a little bit better idea of what they are going to be, you know, glazing their pot with. So I think she used these, the Mako Stroke and Coat, and the kids tend to gravitate towards these quite a bit. I also have made this test tile of one of the Mako's, there's something in it because I was using it for something apparently. But I made this test tile or test mug or whatever you want to call it. it had an S crack in the bottom, so I was like, well, that will make a great tile. And these are one of the Mako's kits that you can get online. And I just painted 1 coat at the top, 2 coats in the middle, sorry, 3 coats at the top, 2 coats in the middle, and 1 coat at the bottom. So I could get an idea and also give the kids an idea of what 1, 2, and 3 coats looks like. You can see the Grapple turns out more pink than purple at cone 5-6. And the pink, the Rosy Posy, fired completely out at cone 5-6. So there isn't a great purple at cone 5-6 in the Mako, but you can get pink from their purple. And there is not a pink that I have found from the Mako Stroke and Coats that comes out at 5-6. So, but all of the rest of the colors did really great. This is Cottontail, so that's meant to be white. Their black is very, very, very opaque, surprisingly. So all good for the most part. All right, I'm gonna put these away and then we will get working on our project. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to start off by just taking, okay, sorry about that, I had a phone call. I am in the studio and this is my business, so that's what those interruptions are. Let's keep going here. So I'm just compressing this slab and removing texture. This is a very important step. I have a lot of kids coming to the workshop and sometimes even adults who are brand new who kind of don't do this step very well, and their clay and pots end up cracking. And this is how we can help prevent that. So this is a really important step not to skip. You saw me just popping air bubbles with the needle tool there. And then I'm gonna compress those out again. I'm compressing in every direction. And it was mentioned in another video that people like to use cornstarch to prevent sticking. I do have cornstarch here and I apply it by just tapping the Hakey brush over the top of the clay. And that is something that I use on occasion. However, I try really hard not to, on film anyway, because sometimes my camera doesn't pick up the texture through the cornstarch. And so I don't get a very great visual for you of the texture. So I try not to use the cornstarch on film. However, there's nothing wrong with using that. I use it myself if I need to. It is a great tool and a great thing to have in the studio. So I'm gonna lift that up, do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so we've got that part done. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start building this. I haven't decided if I want to sculpt the walls or if I want to use a roller. Since I've used the roller quite a bit on these flower pots, I think I'm gonna go ahead and just do a demonstration on sculpting. So I'm gonna start by cutting out my base. And I'm gonna put that right here on my wear board. Make that round again. Okay. Then I'm going to kind of get an idea. So the way that I like to get an idea of how long I need this to be is to kind of find the seam on the cookie cutter and put that flat on the slab of clay, roll it around here, and where the seam presses into the clay again right here, and you probably can't see that, but it's here and here. That's basically how long my walls are going to need to be. I'm gonna go ahead and just cut that entire length and cut the excess off later just to be on the safe side. To do that, I like to use a quilting square. I know you guys have seen this in other videos because it's such a good tool, you know, and you can also, so once you have your piece, like if I was gonna make 50 of these, I would use my quilting square once, figure out, you know, where I wanted that, and then I would make a template from, I think you can use tar paper. You can also use craft foam. I tend to use craft foam only because it's easier to get to. I mean, I can pick some up at Walmart or the box store, whatever. I have easier access to craft foam, so that's what I tend to use. But I know a lot of people who use tar paper, I think it's called, and I've considered giving that a try on multiple occasions because it seems to be more versatile than the craft foam. Maybe I'll do a video on that in the future. But in any case, to start, I tend to use the square. So how I'm going to do that is I'm just gonna lay it here. I'm gonna take my fettling knife and cut that square corner there. I'm gonna line this up and just kind of keep going till I get to the end there. And then I'm going to determine how tall I want this to be. And I think, you know, I don't want it to be a very big piece. So I'm gonna go with 3 inches here. So I'm gonna line it up on the 3-inch mark here. Make sure it's square. And I'm going to start to cut out these other pieces. Just like that. So now I have a little bit of a slab left, which I might use, so I'm gonna hold that off to the side. I have my wall here, and I have some excess clay. So these slab pieces I'm gonna put over here because I'm probably gonna use those to make my leaves and stuff. This part here, I'm gonna ball and wedge up a little bit. And that is going to become my pinch pot for my roof. Okay. So now for this part here. What I have done in the past is I really like to create like a stucco over brick kind of texture effect, which was, you know, which looks really good, I think, and is pretty cute. And so basically what I do is I just start drawing little sections, like about that big, that I then turn into, you know, brick. I'm gonna go one more here. And so I do this in different areas. From there, I like to go ahead and take whatever tool, I don't know if you saw this, but these tools, I got them on Amazon. They have a rubber piece, and then you can take that off and it has just like a metal spoon sort of shape. I like to use both of those, but what I like to do is kind of get under there and push the brick in and the stucco out. Kind of make it look more realistic, I guess. So here I'm pushing the stucco out again, and I'll go in and clean that up. But I'm gonna say the stucco is here, and obviously the stucco where it fell off is not, you know, it's not gonna be a perfect square, so. Kind of just do this little thing, and then I end up with some bricks underneath the stucco. Okay. Here, I'll do one more. I'll do this small one, and then I'll fast forward through all of this. Okay, so from here, I'm going to take my water bucket and just get a damp brush. I'm kind of sponging a lot of that excess water off. And I'm just gonna go in with my sponge and clean that up, take off anything that's gonna be a sharp edge, because I don't wanna cut myself unloading the kiln. And just kind of clean some of these edges up, make it look a little bit more refined. I mean, I want that stucco to look jagged, like something like, you know, like the stucco actually fell off the brick surface. But I also don't want to cut myself. So I tend to lean, and I have cut myself quite a few times unloading the kiln on sharp, jagged pieces, and I'm after whimsical, not realistic, or what do they call that? Hyper real. I'm not after hyper real, I'm after whimsical. So I just kind of want to give the impression of a jagged edge. I don't actually want the jagged edge, if that makes sense. Okay, so then from here, I'm gonna go ahead and bring over my banding wheel that has my base. I'm gonna be lifting this up and slipping and scoring that onto my base here. And remember, I did leave excess, so there is going to be some overhang that we'll be cutting off. And that's not, that place where we're cutting off doesn't have any of this texture we created, and so that's probably where I'm gonna end up putting my door. So I just kind of wanna get this on here just as a pre-measurement to see where I'm cutting before I start slipping and scoring. I'm gonna go ahead and cut that at an angle, just like this. Those pieces will line up. Go as straight up and down as you can. Okay. And that should line up for you pretty well. Okay. All of these extra pieces can go into this ball that will eventually become our pinch pot top. But before we do that, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off, and we're gonna slip and score both the base and the side. And then I'm gonna start setting that down on my base. Again, if you did the mug workshop, this is just like building a mug. If you did the planter workshop, this is just like doing the planter on a much smaller scale. Okay. All right, so there's our little house, and I'm gonna stop there, set this aside so that we can start making our pinch pot top. And basically, I'm just going to start off by making a ball. And again, this is whimsical, so we're not too concerned about, you know, the perfection of the build. I'll put it that way. We're not too concerned about the perfection of the build. We want this to look kind of like it was made by a little froggy toad character, not by, you know, a machine or something, right? We want it to look very hand-built. Okay. So this is my little mushroom toad house. I'm gonna start building the door. You can put windows in this if you want. I'm gonna put maybe a door and a window, and then I'm gonna start decorate. I'm gonna put a door, a window, and a chimney, and then I'm gonna start decorating it. So for my chimney, we'll start there. I'm gonna take this back off of there. I've got myself this little round cookie cutter, and I'm just gonna eyeball the middle there, and I'm gonna cut through the pot. To make the hole for my, and that was a lot of, that pinch pot's still pretty thick right there, so I had more clay to work with if I needed to. So I'm just gonna clean that up because it's a little bit harder to clean up the inside of this once you've got the chimney on. And then I'm going to take this here, I'm gonna cut a section of it off. And this slab here is 3/8 of an inch. No, it's not, sorry, that's way too big. I wanna say that this is about 1/4 of an inch. Let's look. I am rolling my slabs at 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch is still a little bit too thick for me for this little chimney that I'm putting on. So I'm going to take this little wooden dowel that I have here, and I'm just gonna roll that a little bit thinner. And that's probably good. I'm gonna compress this. Again, prevents cracking. It's always an important step you do not want to skip. Compress, 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 compress your clay. Do it over again. Do it as many times as you can. Do it over and over again. Compress your clay. Okay, so now again, we're gonna see how long we need by taking the seam of the cookie cutter, leaving a mark with it, rolling it around, and that's how long we need our chimney piece to be. So we've got this. And this. and this, and this, and that's a little bit extra. Okay. And that actually wasn't a little bit of extra, so I'm glad that I left that extra because now it does fit. So now we're gonna slip and score that together. I find that sometimes these smaller pieces can be a little bit more difficult to work with than bigger pieces in a different way. Like if you have really big hands, you might not be making a toad house that has pieces quite this small, just because the smaller the pieces are, the more fiddly they become. And if you don't have delicate little thin fingers, it can be a little bit difficult to put together. So I'm just slipping and scoring that together and then placing it on my mushroom lid. And I'm just gonna push it down a little, just so that I know it's not gonna come off. If you don't get this slipped and scored on there real well, I would be concerned about this piece coming off. So if you wanted to, and you were concerned, you could put a tiny coil around this one. And when I say tiny, I mean like, you know, it doesn't have to be big. Just enough to give it a little extra clay. There's already slip around the outside of that where it oozed out when I pushed it together, so I don't need to slip the outside of that. Just went on the inside, I don't know if you can see that or not, and cleaned up the seam that was right there. And then I cleaned up the seam that was on the inside of the chimney. And now I'm just gonna take a sponge and clean up the rest of that coil. Here's my little mushroom toad house with its chimney. I'm gonna set the lid aside and we're gonna move on back over here to the house portion of the build, and we're gonna put our door on. So I would like to just get a measurement of how tall this is, and mine was 3 inches, and then you add 1/4 inch for the base, so this is 3 1/4 inch. So when I'm making my door, I just want to make sure that my door is quite a bit shorter than 3 1/4 inch. You know, I think I'm going to go 2 1/2 inches on the door, which is going to put me here, and I'm just going to leave a little mark on my ruler where that 2 1/2 inch mark is. Okay. And you know what? I actually forgot a step first here too, because I do want to make, again, I want to make this slab a little thinner. It's a little bit too thick at 1/4 inch. And so basically what I do is I'm going to cut at that one point, where I marked, I'm just going to cut a straight edge across there. And I just generally eyeball the door and I cut it out. I like to make my door round. You can make it however you want. It doesn't have to be round like mine. Okay, so there's my door. I'm gonna set it on here, just make sure that we've got it how we want it. if I leave it off the seam, you will see the seam. I think I'm gonna do that because then I can put a little window right here. So here we are. That was 2.5 inches from top to bottom on the door with a 3¼ inch high build. And then I'm gonna kind of show you, I can't really do this upside down, so I'm just gonna zoom in on it and you guys are gonna see it upside down. But what I like to do is I just go in and I start by making my boards, and I just use the needle tool to make my boards. Some of them can be wider, some of them can be thinner, right? There. Then I go in with my needle tool and I start drawing little wooden knots. And I draw probably a little wooden knot on every single one. Sometimes 2 on one, right? So I'm just drawing like little spirals in different places here. Maybe one board doesn't have a spiral on it at all. Maybe some boards just have 1 and some boards have 2. The less symmetrical it is, the more natural it looks. So just keep that in mind. We're not after symmetry here. Okay, and so then once I've got my little spiral, I'm just following that spiral down, creating little lines, and then I'm just gonna follow those lines multiple times over and over again, and that is creating a wood grain for us. Okay, so now once you have your lines in the way that you like them, again, I don't like anything sharp, so I'm just gonna take that damp paintbrush again, and I'm just gonna go over everything real lightly. I'm not gonna take off the little burrs or anything like that. I mean, if there's one that's really big that lands in the crack, I might try it and smooth it out a little, but again, I'm not after perfection here, so I'm just taking a lightly damp brush and just kind of very lightly and gently brushing over everything. And then we end up with our wooded, knotty door here. And I'm going to go ahead and put this right here on my build. Again, we slip and score everything because I have had a lot of students and even myself and people in general not slip and score well, and you know, they get really disappointed when their little detail pieces pop off. So I'm scoring the back side of the door here, and I'm just gonna very lightly wet it down with my slip. I'm gonna place it where I want it. I'm not gonna mush it on yet. I'm just gonna set it on there. So I haven't mushed it on yet, but I've just set it on there. And what I'm going to do is take this off, and it's going to leave a print of where I need to score on this side. So we're gonna do that. Score in all directions. Cross hatching is what they call that. Put a little bit of slip on that. Set our door back on there, and already it grabbed. So I know that that's not going to come off. That's good. And I'm just gonna gently make sure, I don't wanna lose any of this texture that I just spent all of this time putting in. but I do want to make sure that every part of the door is touching and attached to the wall of the pot. Okay. So there's our little door. I'm going to go back with my little stylus tool and I'm going to clean up that seam around the door. Just kind of make it one solid piece here. Do that on the bottom here too. Okay. Take my little sponge, my damp paintbrush here, and clean it up. I'm a real stickler for sharp edges. I don't like them. Anybody who has unloaded a kiln, a community kiln before, who's cut themselves multiple times is feeling my pain. So if you want to do your instructors a favor, your pottery instructors a favor, you want to do yourself a favor, if you unload and load your own kiln, clean up your sharp edges and pieces. Okay, so there we have that. I probably am gonna put rocks around like I did here. I'm gonna build a window and put little rocks around both the door and the window. I might put a leaf as an awning here. This video is getting pretty long. I don't know if I have time to show you all of that. But what I will show you real quick is how I'm making the little leaves, because I think that I am going to have some leaves on my mushroom lid here. Like some leaves fell off of the tree onto my mushroom lid. It looks like my door probably isn't going to have room for an awning with this lid the way that it is. So I'm probably not going to do a leaf awning on there actually. I'm going to put a little window here. So real quickly, I'm just going to show you how I make the leaves. So I've got this slab that I cut the door out of, so it's already been thinned out. It's already been compressed. I have my little leaf stamp, and so I'm just going to go through and get a real good impression of these leaves. You could leave them like that and cut them out just like this if you want to. Or you can do what I do and take this little heart cookie cutter and cut them into this little shape. Okay, and you end up with a little leaf with a jagged little edge. Not sharp, jagged. Okay, so, and I actually got this idea. I had a friend who was making leaves just with the cookie cutter. And I thought, oh, what a great idea. That does look like a leaf. And then I made it my own by adding the stamp in the middle. Okay. So, you know, you can get inspired by others, but then make it your own. That's okay. And I would say that, you know, nobody else has this stamp, you know, like it's my own because I made that stamp personally. Nobody else has it. You can't go to the store and buy that stamp. However, I share all of my stamps with the studio. I don't keep my stamps to myself. Anybody can use these stamps, it's fine. So if you come into the studio, you can make these leaves exactly like this if you want to. That's okay. There we go. All right. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these on here, you know, like just little leaves that fell onto the mushroom. I'm gonna put them on, and you know, some in clumps, like that maybe, like they fell on top of the tree, and then just some sporadically in different areas, like they're just hanging out. You know, maybe I'll put one on the chimney there. So maybe like that. And then I'm gonna put my window in. Let's see how much time is left on there. Okay, well maybe I have a minute here. I can show you the window real quick. I am gonna put those on just like that in a second, but I'll show you how I make the window real quick. Set this aside, and again, I have my thinned out piece of wood here, or piece of clay here. I'm going to make myself a little window box. Box very big, so I'm going to go about here. Okay, so I've got this square piece of clay, I've got this rectangle piece of clay, and I'm just going to cut off the sides. And now I can see that my window box is still way too big, and I don't want it to be that big, so I'm gonna cut that piece out in the middle. And what we end up with is a little tiny piece that we can put together, slip and score together like this. And then I'm gonna come over here and measure my little window box. So my little window box is gonna maybe go right there. So I'm gonna go in here and mark where my window box ends. I'm gonna draw a curve that matches the door. I think that's visually appealing. I think that if you make your door square, you should make your window square. If you make your door round, you should make your window round. I think that's true in clay art, and it drives me nuts when I see these giant houses with square and round windows. It looks off to me. So I encourage you to make your shapes symmetrical that way. Maybe that's an artist thing, I don't know. But I've drawn that little line there, and now I'm gonna take a couple pieces of clay. I'm going to roll a coil. If your coil is too dry, you can take your sponge, wet the table down, and continue to roll your coil. That will moisten it, prevent the cracking. Okay. So I'm going to take my score tool and just kind of score a little bit where I want those cross braces to go. I'm going to score my cross brace. And you have yourself a little window cross brace. Now remember, I'm gonna put stones around this, and I'm gonna put stones around my door, and those are pretty easy. They're just, all you do to make a little tiny stone is take a little tiny ball of clay like this, roll it between your fingers. You don't want it to be a ball. You want those little imperfections. See, like this has a little divot in it here and here. Well, that's what makes it look like a rock. So you just keep that there. And you put those on all the way around. I'm not going to show you that because we're running out of time, but that's not a difficult thing. They're not hard to build. They're just little imperfect balls of clay. Slip and score this, put it where I want it, take it off, slip and score the other side. And put that back on there. Pinch it on. There we go. I'm really pinching this on. I don't want it to fall off. Okay. And we have our little window box. Okay, I'm gonna finish building this, and then I'm gonna come back at the very end of the video and show you what it looks like in the end. Okay, so we're gonna come back in here real quick and just kind of talk a little bit about what design elements I added. Real quick, this is the finished piece. We've got 1, 2, 3 toed lane that I put on there, and I used the fondant stamps that I showed you from the beginning to put that on. I added the little leaves we cut out. I added all of these little balls because this house in and of itself is a mushroom, so I'm gonna paint this top red and have the little balls white. And little leaves have fallen on our house, so those will be green. And then I went ahead and I added some hinges to our wooden door, kind of medieval style. I added in all of the stones that are going around the door and also around the window box and the window. On this side over here, I put in a little pot because there's nothing whimsical about anything without a ceramic or pottery pot. So there's always a pot. And then I did go ahead and put a little cutout here for our little toads to get into, or if you are burning incense, or if you are putting a tea light. So there's a little opening. You don't have to have an opening. I prefer one. I think it's easier if you are going to use it as a tea light. Also, if you're going to use it as an incense burner, it gives the incense a little bit more oxygen so that it burns better. So, and then obviously if it's a toad house, the toad needs a little opening to get into. So that's our little toad house build. Again, when we're firing this, we're firing it with the lid on. Not only in the bisque, but also the glaze. So when we're glazing this, we're going to leave the inside here unglazed, and we're gonna leave this top rim unglazed so that our lid comes off. If you want your lid to come off. If you don't care and you just want your lid to be stuck on there, you can not worry about the glaze. So anyway, there it is, all cute and ready for firing. All right, so the workshops this month, I don't have dates yet, but if you go onto the website, the workshop should be posted on the website. It is $35 per house, per toad house. So if you feel like you can make more than one in 2 hours and you want to do that, you can just order 2 tickets. This again is for ages 5 and up. I do think that 5-year-olds can make these little toad houses. Again, this one was made by my 11-year-old daughter. 5-year-olds, I think, probably can make them too. They'll just be a little bit more whimsical, which is fine. They're totally cute and just such a fun thing to put in the garden. I already have 4 of these that my kids made in my garden. I might actually have less now because they have broken over the years, but I just put them all around my plants. They're so cute, whether they're a, you know, a professional build or whether they're an amateur build. So bring your kids with you to this one, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I try to answer those as best I can. Oh, also, if you enjoyed the video and you want to see more, then please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps me out. It helps my channel grow. It helps me continue to post videos for you guys. So hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.